My insane girlfriend drunkenly confessed to my friend that she is pregnant from her ex and plans to make me take care of the baby. Alright, so here's how it all started. One night, we were at this party that some friend of ours threw. It was nothing too fancy, just your usual hangout with people from school, you know? I was there with my girlfriend, Jessica. We'd been together since high school, about 3 years at this point. I really thought we had a future together, like, I was actually planning stuff with her. Marriage, traveling, even kids at some point. She was the girl I thought I'd be with for life. But man, that night changed everything. You ever get one of those moments where you can feel something's just off, but you can't really put your finger on it? Well, that was me. Jessica was acting kind of weird, but I didn't think much of it. She was talking with everyone, laughing a little too loud, just being extra. I figured she was just having fun, no big deal. So, I'm standing there, talking with a couple of my buddies, and that's when my friend Matt comes rushing up to me. And when I say rushing, I mean rushing. He had this look on his face like he didn't even know how to say what he had to say. I thought maybe someone had spilled a drink on my car or something stupid like that. But nope, it was way worse than anything I could have imagined. Matt grabs my arm, pulls me aside and goes, "Dude, I need to tell you something. Like, now." At this point, I'm starting to get a little freaked out because Matt's normally the chillest guy I know. He doesn't get worked up over much, so seeing him like this made my stomach drop. I'm like, "All right, man, what's up?" And he hesitates for a second, looks around to make sure no one's listening, and then he says it. "Jessica just told me she's been hooking up with Ryan." Now, for context, Ryan is her ex-boyfriend from freshman year. They broke up way before we got together, but she always described their relationship as nothing serious, just some high school thing that didn't mean much. So hearing his name again, and in this way it felt like my brain couldn't even process it. I just stared at Matt for a second, not really understanding what he was saying. "Wait, what do you mean she's been hooking up with Ryan? Like, are you serious right now?" Matt nods, and he looks like he's gonna throw up. "She told me they've been sleeping together for months. And that's not even the worst part, dude. She's pregnant. She said it's his." At this point, my heart is pounding. I'm feeling all kinds of things. Confusion, anger, betrayal, you name it. And the worst part was, I couldn't even do anything right then. I was in shock. I mean, we'd been together for years, and I thought we had something real. I was already planning on going to my dream college, and now, out of nowhere, I'm hearing that my girlfriend's pregnant with her ex's baby? But Matt wasn't done. She also said she plans to make you raise it. That was it. That's when the world stopped for me. Everything I thought I knew about Jessica, about our relationship, just crumbled right there. The idea that she'd not only cheat on me, but then plan to trap me into taking care of a kid that wasn't even mine? I felt sick to my stomach. So I'm standing there, trying to keep it together, but I can't. I'm feeling so many things at once. Betrayed, heartbroken, and yeah, furious. I couldn't believe the girl I'd spent years with, the one I thought I was going to marry, could do something like this. I just remember looking at Matt and saying, I gotta go. I couldn't stay there anymore. I couldn't be around people, around Jessica. I had to get out of there before I lost it. I went home that night, but sleep? No way that was happening. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head over and over again. I thought about all the times I had caught little things, like when I saw her texting Ryan a few months ago. I asked her about it and she brushed it off, saying it was just puppy love and nothing serious. She even had the nerve to ask if they could hang out because they were just friends now. Like an idiot, I trusted her. I figured if we were going to make it through college, we'd have to trust each other, right? God, I felt like such an idiot. The next morning, I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't just pretend I didn't know. I went over to her place, and the second she opened the door, I knew she was guilty. She tried to act surprised, like she didn't know why I was there, but I could see it in her eyes. She knew. I sat down on her couch, my heart racing, and I just asked her straight up, "Did you tell Matt you've been sleeping with Ryan?" Her face went pale. She tried to play dumb, laughing it off, saying something like, "Oh, that? I was just joking around. I was drunk and I thought it would be funny." I wasn't laughing. "You think it's funny to say you're pregnant with someone else's baby and that you're going to make me take care of it? You think that's funny?" She froze, and for a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, it was some twisted joke. But then I saw her eyes dart toward the door like she was ready to run. That's when I knew it was all real. I didn't even give her time to lie anymore. I pulled out the pregnancy test I'd picked up on the way over and tossed it on the coffee table. "Take it." Her hands started shaking, and that's when she broke down. "I'm sorry, okay? I messed up. It was only once. I don't even know if it's his for sure, but I need you, please. You're the better guy. I know you'd be a great dad. I couldn't believe the nerve of her. She was sitting there, crying, trying to make me feel bad for her when she's the one who betrayed me. I stood up and she grabbed my arm, begging me not to leave. But I couldn't stay, not after that. I'm done, I told her. We're done. You made your choice, and now you gotta deal with it. As I walked out, she kept calling after me, saying she loved me, saying it was all a mistake. But I couldn't even hear it. All I could think about was how I'd wasted 3 years of my life with someone who didn't even respect me enough to be honest. And that was just the beginning of the nightmare. So after that whole mess with Jessica, things just kept getting worse. I was trying to move on, but she wasn't having it. Like, I thought breaking up with her would mean things were over, but apparently she didn't get the memo. It's like she couldn't accept the fact that I wasn't coming back no matter how clear I made it. A few days after I left her place, she started blowing up my phone. Calls, texts, everything. She kept saying she wanted to explain or fix things. But honestly, there was nothing left to fix. The trust was gone. It was all gone. I'd see her name pop up on my screen and my stomach would just drop. I couldn't even bring myself to answer. I knew it would just be more of her trying to manipulate me into taking her back, or worse, trying to convince me to raise this kid that wasn't even mine. But the thing is, she didn't stop at just calling me. No, she took things up a notch. One evening, I was chilling at home, trying to just distract myself from everything, when my mom called me from downstairs. She sounded annoyed, so I knew something was up. I went down, and there she was, Jessica, standing on my doorstep, crying her eyes out, begging to talk to me. My mom didn't know the full story at this point, so she just looked confused. But I knew exactly what was going on. I walked down the stairs, and Jessica just launched into this whole emotional breakdown, saying how scared and alone she felt, how she made a mistake, and that she needed me. It was a mess. I wasn't ready for it, honestly. I mean, how do you even respond to that when you're the one who got stabbed in the back? But I knew I had to stay strong. I told her straight up that there was nothing left to talk about. We were done. Over. I didn't want to be with someone who could do that to me. She started crying harder, of course, trying to guilt-trip me like always. She begged me to just listen, and I figured maybe if I gave her 5 minutes, she'd leave me alone after. Spoiler, that didn't happen. So we went up to my room to talk, and the second she sat on my bed, it was like someone turned on a faucet. She started bawling again, saying how she still loved me and how Ryan didn't mean anything to her. She kept saying it was just one mistake, and that she wanted me to be the one to raise the baby because I'd be such a good dad. I could barely keep my cool at this point. I mean, really? I told her, as calmly as I could, that I wasn't interested in raising her ex's kid, no matter what. I wasn't even interested in being with her anymore. She couldn't understand why. She actually asked me why I wouldn't stay with her if the baby was mine, like she was expecting me to just forget the cheating. I just sat there, staring at her, completely stunned that she didn't get it. So I told her again, slowly, that I wasn't going to be with her even if the baby turned out to be mine. She tried arguing, saying it was just one time, and that she made a mistake, but I wasn't having it. Finally, after what felt like hours of this back and forth, I asked her to leave. She didn't want to go, but I told her there was nothing more to say. We were done. I had to practically push her out the door. She was still crying, still begging for another chance, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I needed her out of my life. But here's the thing. She didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, she kept showing up at my house unannounced, calling me nonstop, texting me about random stuff that had nothing to do with the baby. It was like she was trying to act like we were still together, even though I made it clear that we were over. There was this one time, this was probably the worst of it, where she showed up at my house at like 10 p.m. I was in my room, minding my own business, when I heard a knock on the door. I figured it was my mom or dad, but when I opened it, there was Jessica, standing there with this weird, desperate look on her face. Before I could say anything, she stepped into my room and tried to kiss me. I pushed her back, completely caught off guard. I couldn't believe she thought that was okay. I told her again, as firmly as I could, that we weren't together, and that I didn't want her showing up like this anymore. She got all teary-eyed again, saying she was so sad, and that the baby could feel her sadness or some nonsense. She kept trying to use that as an excuse to hang out with me. I had to stand my ground. I told her she needed to leave, and if she kept pulling this, I'd have to block her completely and cut off all contact. That seemed to finally get through to her, at least for a little while. But the worst part was, even though I knew I had to cut her out, it still hurt. Every time I saw her face or heard her voice, it reminded me of everything we were supposed to have. We were supposed to have a future together, and now all I could see was the betrayal. It was like this constant tug of war in my head. One part of me still wanted to be with her, the girl I thought I knew, but the other part of me knew that she wasn't that person anymore. Eventually, after what felt like forever, the results of the paternity test came back. I remember the exact moment I got the call. My heart was pounding in my chest as the doctor on the other end of the line confirmed what I already knew deep down. The baby wasn't mine. Relief and sadness hit me at the same time. On one hand, I was glad I wasn't tied to Jessica for the rest of my life, but on the other hand, it was the final nail in the coffin of our relationship. There was no coming back from this. Not that there ever was. I thought that would be the end of it, but Jessica, she had other plans. She kept trying to convince me to be the father anyway, because according to her, I was still the better choice. I told her to talk to Ryan since he was the real father, but she admitted that he didn't want anything to do with the baby and wanted her to terminate the pregnancy. I stood my ground. I told her it wasn't my responsibility anymore. She made her choice, and now she had to deal with it. But even then, it didn't feel good to say it. Deep down, it hurt, knowing that this kid would grow up without a dad. But I wasn't going to let her guilt me into being a part of this mess. It was a weird mix of relief and pain. I wasn't trapped with her, but it still hurt knowing that everything I thought we had was gone for good. Update 1. After everything that had already happened, I thought things couldn't get any crazier. I really did. I figured once the paternity test came back and proved I wasn't the father, Jessica would get the picture and finally leave me alone. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that I shouldn't expect anything when it comes to her. So a few weeks after I got the paternity results, I was starting to get my life back together. I had stopped answering her calls and texts, and she wasn't showing up at my house as much. It felt like things were getting back to normal, or at least as normal as they could be after everything that went down. But then, one night, I was just chilling in my room, trying to focus on my college plans when my phone buzzed. It was my dad. He never calls this late unless something's up, so I picked up right away. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the tension in his voice. "Did you get a girl pregnant and ditch her?" he asked, and I could tell he was trying to keep calm. My heart sank. I knew immediately this had to be Jessica. There's no way he'd just ask me that out of nowhere. "What are you talking about?" I replied, even though I knew exactly what was going on. "Jessica came by the house earlier today," he explained. "She's saying you're the father of her baby and that you've been ignoring her." I couldn't believe it. After everything, she was still trying to pull this crap? She knew I wasn't the father. She knew. But here she was, going behind my back, telling my parents some twisted version of the story. "She's lying," I said, trying to stay calm but feeling my blood start to boil. "I'm not the father. I got a paternity test, and it proved it wasn't mine. She cheated on me with her ex, Ryan. He's the one who got her pregnant." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could tell my dad was trying to wrap his head around it. "You have the test results?" "Yeah," I said. "I have them. I'll show you if you want, but trust me, she's lying." He sighed. "All right, I believe you. I wish you'd told us sooner. Your mom was pretty upset." "I get it. I probably should have filled them in earlier, but honestly, I didn't want to drag them into the mess. I was trying to handle it on my own, and I didn't expect Jessica to go this far. I told my dad I'd talk to my mom and clear things up, but I was fuming. I couldn't believe Jessica had the nerve to go to my parents' house and tell them I'd abandoned her. It was like she couldn't accept that I wasn't going to play her game anymore, so she was trying to drag my family into it. The next day, I talked to my mom. She was obviously upset but relieved when I showed her the paternity test results. It was hard seeing her so sad over the whole thing. Jessica had apparently broken down in front of her, crying and playing the victim card, saying how she was scared and alone and how I was the only one who could help her. "She made it seem so real," my mom said, shaking her head. "I can't believe she would lie like that." I couldn't either, but that's what Jessica did. She lied, she manipulated, and now she was trying to drag my family into her mess. With my parents on my side, I thought maybe that would be the end of it. Maybe now that she knew I had told everyone the truth, she'd finally leave me alone. But of course she didn't. A few days later, I got a message from one of my friends. "Dude, have you seen Jessica's social media?" he asked. I hadn't. I was doing my best to stay away from anything that had to do with her. But out of curiosity, I checked. And there it was, this long post about how she was going through the hardest time of her life and how she was being abandoned by the father of her child. She didn't mention me by name, but it was obvious who she was talking about. People in the comments were posting stuff like, "Stay strong, girl," and "You're going to be a great mom even if the dad's not in the picture." It was infuriating. She was spinning this whole narrative, making me look like the bad guy, and I couldn't even defend myself without making things worse. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Comment on her post like, actually, I'm not the father and she cheated on me with her ex? That would just add fuel to the fire. I was venting to my friend Matt about it later that night. He's the one who told me about Jessica in the first place, so he's been there through all of this. Man, she's not going to stop, he said. She's trying to ruin your life because she can't handle the fact that you're not going to take her back. I knew he was right, and it sucked because there was really nothing I could do to stop her. She was going to keep telling people whatever she wanted, and I just had to live with it. The breaking point came a few weeks later when she showed up at my work. I was in the middle of my shift when I saw her walk in. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen her in person since the whole paternity test thing, and I wasn't ready for this. She came right up to me, completely ignoring the fact that I was at work. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low and serious. I pulled her aside, trying to keep things as calm as possible. "What do you want, Jessica?" "I can't do this alone," she said, her eyes welling up with tears. "You were supposed to help me. You were supposed to be there for me." "I'm not the father," I told her, for what felt like the millionth time. "I've done everything I can. You need to let this go." She didn't listen. She just kept going on and on about how scared she was, how she didn't know what to do without me. It was like she didn't even hear me when I said we were done. "I'm not going to be a part of this," I said firmly. "You need to figure this out with Ryan. I'm not going to raise his kid." That's when she lost it. She started crying, loudly, right there in the middle of my work. People were staring, and I felt like the ground was falling out from under me. I wanted to disappear. "I love you," she yelled through her tears. "You're the one I'm supposed to be with." It was a nightmare. I had to call my manager to get her out of the building, and the whole time she was screaming about how I was abandoning her and the baby. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, judging me, even though I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. That night, I knew I had to cut all ties with her completely. I blocked her number, her social media, everything. I told my parents not to answer if she showed up again, and I told my friends to stop telling me what she was posting online. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I thought I could get through it all quietly, but Jessica had other plans. Update 2. Alright, so after that meltdown Jessica had at my work, I thought I'd hit rock bottom with her antics. But oh man, I had no idea how much worse it could get. You'd think after getting her kicked out of my job and blocking her on everything, she'd get the message. She didn't. Not even close. A few days after the whole work incident, I was at home, finally starting to feel like I could breathe again. I'd cut her out, blocked her number, deleted her from all my social media. I wasn't hearing from her directly anymore, so I thought I was in the clear. But then, my mom called me into the living room. She had this weird look on her face, like she didn't know how to say what she was about to say. "Your dad and I got something in the mail today," she said, holding out this envelope. I took it and opened it up, and my stomach dropped. It was a letter from a lawyer. Jessica was trying to sue me for child support, for a baby that wasn't even mine. Now, you might be wondering how she could possibly think this was going to work. Well, turns out, she was claiming that because we had been in a relationship for so long, and she was pregnant during that time, I should be responsible for helping her out financially. She was saying that I had acted as a father figure, and that meant I should have to pay. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I was furious. This girl had not only cheated on me and lied about the baby being mine, but now she was trying to drag me into court over it? I couldn't let this slide. I immediately called my dad. I knew he'd have some advice, and he was just as angry as I was. "You need to get a lawyer," he said. "Don't let her get away with this. She's just trying to mess with your life." So that's exactly what I did. I found a lawyer and explained the whole situation. He was pretty confident that the case wouldn't hold up in court, especially since I had the paternity test proving the baby wasn't mine. But still, it was a hassle I didn't need. Just the thought of having to go to court, sit in front of a judge, and deal with Jessica again made me sick to my stomach. A few weeks later, the court date rolled around. I walked into that courtroom feeling nervous as hell. I mean, yeah, I had all the evidence on my side, but still it was nerve-wracking. Jessica was there, sitting at the other table, looking all smug like she thought she was about to win something. It took everything in me not to lose my cool. The judge started going through the paperwork, and my lawyer presented the paternity test right off the bat. I could see Jessica's face change when he brought it up. She went from looking confident to suddenly shifting in her seat, like she realized she might have messed up. The judge took one look at the results and then asked Jessica's lawyer why they were even here if I wasn't the father. Her lawyer tried to make some excuse about emotional bonds or some nonsense like that. but it wasn't working. The judge wasn't having it. I'll never forget what the judge said next. He looked right at Jessica and said, "Miss, this young man is not the father of your child, and there's no legal obligation for him to support you. This case is dismissed." I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. It was finally over. I thought, finally, I'm done with this nightmare. But of course it wasn't that simple. Even after the court case was thrown out, Jessica didn't back off. She doubled down on her harassment. She started sending me these weird, guilt-tripping messages from random phone numbers, talking about how she was ruined because of me, how she was struggling to make ends meet, and how her life was falling apart. She made it sound like it was my fault that Ryan didn't want to step up and be a dad. Like I was somehow responsible for her entire situation. I didn't respond. I couldn't. What was I supposed to say to that? I wasn't going to let her drag me back into her mess. The next few weeks were quiet. I started focusing on my own life again, working extra shifts, planning for college, trying to rebuild some of the peace she had destroyed. But every time I started to feel normal again, something else would happen. One day I came home from work, and my mom was sitting at the kitchen table, looking stressed. "Jessica came by today," she said, her voice tight. "She was crying, saying you've ruined her life." I could feel the anger boiling up inside me again. What did she say? "She just kept going on about how you left her when she needed you the most, and how she doesn't know what to do anymore," my mom replied, shaking her head. "I told her she needs to leave you alone, but she wouldn't listen. She said she's desperate." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to stop this once and for all. I called my lawyer again, explaining what was going on, and he suggested I file for a restraining order. I didn't want to go that far, but at this point, I didn't have a choice. She wasn't going to leave me alone unless I took some serious action. So, I filed for the restraining order. I thought maybe that would scare her enough to finally back off. It was a tough decision, but I couldn't keep living with this constant anxiety, wondering when she was going to show up at my house or my work again. The day of the restraining order hearing came, and Jessica actually had the nerve to show up. She looked like she had been crying, like she was still trying to play the victim, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I told the judge everything, how she had been harassing me, showing up unannounced, spreading lies about me, and even trying to sue me for child support. The judge didn't take long to make a decision. He granted the restraining order, and Jessica was officially barred from contacting me or coming near me. It was the biggest relief I'd felt in months. I walked out of that courtroom, feeling like I could finally breathe again. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but Jessica didn't go down quietly. Even with the restraining order in place, she still tried to send me messages through mutual friends, trying to get sympathy and making it sound like I was the bad guy. But at least now, I had something legal on my side. If she kept pushing, I knew I had a way to stop her. It wasn't the closure I wanted, but it was the closest I was going to get. At the end of the day, I had to focus on moving forward with my life. I had dreams, goals, and a future ahead of me that didn't involve her. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was free. Update 3. So, after getting the restraining order, I thought things were finally calming down. For the first time in months, I could actually focus on my life and not constantly worry about Jessica popping up out of nowhere. The whole ordeal had left me pretty messed up mentally, but I was determined to move on and put all that behind me. I figured I'd done everything I could to keep her out of my life, and that was it. Turns out, I was wrong. Even with the restraining order in place, Jessica wasn't done trying to make things difficult for me. She didn't try to contact me directly anymore, thankfully, but she started using a different tactic that I didn't see coming. It all started when my cousin Jake called me one afternoon. He sounded weirdly hesitant, which was strange because Jake's usually the kind of guy who just says whatever's on his mind. He goes, "Hey man, I don't know how to tell you this, but Jessica's been talking to people." I was like, "What do you mean, talking to people?" I knew he wasn't talking about normal conversations, so I already had that sinking feeling in my gut. "She's been telling everyone in the group that you're the reason her life is ruined," he continued. "She's making it sound like you abandoned her and the baby, and people are starting to believe her." That hit me like a truck. I couldn't believe it. Even after the restraining order and everything that happened in court, she was still out there spreading lies, and now she was using my friends to try and make me look like the bad guy. I was furious. Like, I couldn't even speak for a minute because I was so angry. "Who's she been talking to?" I finally asked. Jake listed off a few names of people we both knew, people who'd known us back when Jessica and I were still together. Most of them hadn't reached out to me, so I didn't even know this was happening. Apparently, she was making up stories about how I'd left her when she needed me the most, and now she was alone, struggling to raise the baby. She conveniently left out the part where the baby wasn't mine and how she cheated on me. I couldn't let this slide. I wasn't about to just sit there while she tried to turn my friends against me. I started calling people, one by one, explaining the real story. Most of them believed me, especially after I mentioned the paternity test and the restraining order, but a couple of them were already pretty far gone, too deep in Jessica's web of lies. I got messages like, "Dude, she's really struggling and you just left her? That's harsh." Or, "I don't know, man. Maybe you could have helped her out more." It was like no matter how much I explained, some people just couldn't understand the whole picture. They saw Jessica as this poor, helpless girl who got left behind, and no matter what I said, they couldn't let go of that image. But the worst part? There were a few people who outright told me they didn't want to hang out with me anymore. These were people I'd known for years, and suddenly, because of Jessica's lies, they were distancing themselves from me. It was like I was losing friends left and right, and there wasn't much I could do about it. It was frustrating, to say the least. I tried not to let it get to me, but after a while it started to wear me down. I couldn't believe how one person could cause so much damage to my life, even after I thought I was free from her. But despite all that, I wasn't about to let her win. I decided to keep my circle small and focus on the people who actually believed me and supported me. Jake was a huge help during this time, always backing me up and calling people out on their crap when they tried to defend Jessica. He had my back when I needed it the most, and honestly, without him, I don't know if I would have gotten through all of this as easily as I did. Still, things weren't perfect. The rumors kept floating around, and I had to hear from random people about the things Jessica was saying. But I kept my distance and focused on myself. I started preparing for college again, picking up extra shifts to save up some money. I was determined to move on with my life and not let Jessica or her lies hold me back any longer. Then, one day, I got a call from Ryan. Yeah, that Ryan, Jessica's ex and the actual father of her baby. We hadn't spoken since everything went down, so I was surprised to hear from him. I answered the phone, half expecting him to start some drama, but he sounded defeated. "Hey man," he said, his voice low. I wanted to apologize." Now that threw me off. Apologize? Ryan? This was the guy who had been hooking up with my girlfriend behind my back, and now he wanted to say sorry? For what? I asked, still not sure what was going on. "For everything," he said. "I didn't know she was going to pull all this on you. She's been telling everyone that I bailed on her too, and I guess I just realized how messed up the whole situation is." Apparently, Jessica had been doing the same thing to him, telling people he was a deadbeat dad, that he'd abandoned her and the baby. She was trying to play both sides, making him look bad to his friends while making me look bad to mine. It was like she was burning every bridge in her life and taking everyone down with her. Ryan went on to explain how he was trying to step up as a father, but Jessica had made it nearly impossible. She was refusing to let him see the baby unless he agreed to get back together with her, which obviously wasn't going to happen. He was just as stuck as I had been. "I don't know what to do anymore," he admitted. "She's out of control." For the first time in this whole mess, I actually felt a little bad for the guy. Yeah, he'd messed up by getting involved with Jessica again, but it was clear he hadn't expected things to spiral like this. And honestly, it felt kind of good to know I wasn't the only one who saw how manipulative she could be. We talked for a while, mostly about how insane the whole situation had become. By the end of the conversation, I realized that while Jessica had caused me a ton of pain, she wasn't going to win. Not with me, and definitely not with Ryan. We were both determined to move on from her and rebuild our lives without her dragging us down anymore. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't instant, but eventually things did start to get better. I went off to college, met new people, and slowly but surely, the drama with Jessica became just a distant memory. Every now and then, I'd hear about her through mutual friends. She'd post something cryptic on social media or try to stir up more drama, but I didn't care anymore. I was finally free, for real this time.